What's happening, dudes and dudettes? Welcome to another race analysis. If you have not been to my channel before, my name is Dalton and I talk about bikes. So I go through race analysis, some tech review, and I seek out and find the best routes in San Diego, across the United States, pretty much anywhere I ride, and I bring them to you and I share them here on YouTube. I always encourage you guys to comment down below your perspective as well. I talk about the things that personally I thought went well, or maybe that I did wrong in these races, but you guys have opinions too. If you learned something, let me know what you learned. If you think I could have done something better, also let me know about that. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button for me down below so that it can get out and reach more people. If you are new to my channel and you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me down below, and that will keep you up to date on all the new videos I post, and you'll be helping my channel grow at the same time. I would like to give a special shout out to Zach for letting me use his third-party footage. I did not have enough battery to film the entirety of the race. Luckily, he caught the beginning portion of it, and I had the last 45 minutes or so. So there's a little bit of swapping back and forth. Anything that does not have data on it is Zach's footage. Anything that has data is my footage. Without further ado, let's dive right into what we got on the slate this week. Another Wednesday Hunte Parkway training. This is a Saturday edition. So folks, here we go. We're going to start out with some race footage here. Real quick, I just want to touch on a couple key things. If you're not familiar with Hunte Parkway, it's usually like a 2.8 mile course. Today it has expanded for the Saturday edition to 3.1 miles. Same kickers, same downhills, everything else that goes along with Hunte Parkway. The big thing today I want to talk about is that we have a limited field size. Our field is down to about 15 guys, and this is going to be really important from a race dynamic perspective. So what happens with a small field is basically attacks are much harder to bring back. If you have 2 or 3 really strong guys off the front and your chase group is only a few riders, it's a lot harder to basically reduce that gap and bring back those riders that are up the road. So basically, if any of these attacks go, you pretty much have to follow them because they are threatening moves. And with that being said, we'll jump straight forward to the first attack of the day. So the whole group is still together. We've got all 15 riders together, but coming out of this corner, you'll see Max is on the front. He basically comes out of the corner, full gas, starts drilling the pace. Now, I was underneath coming into that corner sitting 4th or 5th wheel, and I immediately respond to that, and so does Larry, one of the really strong PRT riders. Now, Zach and some of the other riders realize how threatening this can be once we actually have a little bit of an established gap. So coming out of this corner, Zach realizes that we're actually gaining some ground here, and he also knows that he can't let that get away. As I said before, any attacks thrown at this point with 2 or 3 strong riders up the front are very, very dangerous. Zach is going to put in the big chase effort to close the gap, and he closes it down pretty quickly actually. What he does in the process is he drags pretty much the entire rest of the group with him. So instead of bridging and coming by himself and working with us, it basically just drags the whole group up. We all understand and know that at that point we're caught. When I get caught like this, I like to basically just sit up, jump back in the pack, and then relax a little bit, recover if I can. However, the textbook thing to do here is counterattack us. And this rider in the white, I believe his name is Rafa. If not, go ahead and roast me in the comments below. He comes across with a perfectly timed counterattack, and that basically leads to what is now going to be a flurry of attacks. So we bring him back, and immediately Max goes right after that. And he takes another rider with him, and as you can see, everybody in the group immediately responds and is willing to do the big effort to make sure that doesn't get up the road, because it's extremely dangerous at this point in a small group. We'll jump ahead basically. This is where we start to actually reel them in. We keep that gap pretty close pretty much the entire time they were off the front. However, what this has done is it has really hurt the rest of the field. So there's already a few guys that have actually been popped off the back of the group just because they were not able to respond when everybody made that huge surge initially to keep this gap manageable between the 5 or 6 riders here and then Max and the other PRT rider off the front. So the initial selection has pretty much been made here. We've split some guys off the back of the group, and now we're down to a little bit smaller group. I think we have about 10 guys left in what I guess could be considered a break here. It hasn't eased up. You would think everybody would be resting after that flurry of attacks. However, you can see here that I'm still doing 500 or 600 watts, which is well above threshold. That's really just to stay with these guys and keep rotating with this breakaway group. What you'll see is this goes on for a while. Everybody gets into a pretty good rhythm here, and basically the goal is just to keep it fast and keep everybody working. So fast forward a little bit, you'll kind of just see us rotating here, but one thing I did want to talk about is why I won't attack this final group of riders, or maybe not necessarily the final selection, but ultimately a group of 8 to 10 guys that are all really fast. If you attack this solo and you don't end up way off the front with a pretty established gap, you could be in big trouble. And you're gonna see sort of what happens when something like that occurs. These guys are all pretty strong, and if they put in a really hard chase effort, when they do bring you back, they can really put you in pain, and you might miss the back of the group. You can see Rafa doesn't live by the same philosophy, as he was actually up the road just there, but we do end up bringing him back right as we hit the hilly section here. This is a really interesting moment in the race. So you can see here, this is my camera. We're actually letting these riders roll off the front. From Zach's point of view, you can see Max and I are actually talking about exactly what's happening right now. And in just a second, you'll hear what I actually say to Max. What you heard was us discussing the selection and the makeup of the group we had currently. I said we need to pop at least 3 more out of this group. And right on cue, Max ups the wattage and puts in a pretty big effort here to get the pace back up. You'll see from my data in the bottom left corner that my initial effort just to basically make sure this doesn't go so far up the road that I can't get back on terms was around 800 or 900 watts. So essentially you're putting in a sprint effort to make sure you stay attached to this group after they put in that big surge. These repeated attacks and surgy riding make it really hard for the entire peloton to stick together. So what's happening is more and more guys are getting more and more fatigue as we get later in the race. And you'll see how that manifests in just a moment. This lap is going to become really critical in the race because it actually allows us to narrow our selection a bit further. You can see me here in front of Zach. Nobody's doing anything too crazy. We're kind of giving everybody a little bit of a rest here because most of us are tired from the attack, counterattack process, and basically the big surges that we've been putting in to make sure we stay on terms. So coming into this corner, you'll see I come around, and what I typically do is when I don't want to be pulling, I sit up and I let somebody else take it over. But what you can see happens is we allow this rider in the blue to roll off the front. As a lone rider off the front of this group, I would personally not be encouraged to try and stick this, so I would basically be already allowing myself to come back to the group or let them gain on me. And ultimately when you don't do that, what happens is guys like Rafa will attack and they will come across the group, and then when the rest of the group responds to that, the speed differential will be so massive when they do come across you that you won't be able to get back onto the back of the group. So from Zach's perspective, you see these two go up the road. This is Tim and Rafa. Max follows, the whole group is following, and the speed differential here between us and the rider in blue is just so great that ultimately he misses the back of this group and is unable to catch the last wheel. And that basically means that unless he can put in a huge sprint effort and regain that wheel, that he's gonna be spit out the back, and then we've actually shed somebody out of the break and have a better chance at our positioning at the end. That move drops us 1 more rider. Now ultimately, if we decide to sit up here and allow him to basically make up ground coming back into the corner, he could probably jump back on the back of the group. However, we're in a situation now where the guys at the front are driving the pace extremely hard. You can see my wattage once again is at 500-600 watts. So if you got spit out the back here, in order to catch us at 26-27 miles an hour, you would have to be able to sustain a much higher wattage profile for a pretty long duration of time until you were able to patch it back up. After this series of moves, you go through basically the typical racing lull of everybody sort of just rotating through pools, keeping it steady, keeping it fast, not letting anybody overtake too hard, but also still driving the pace to the extent that it's hard for everybody to hang on. I really just included this for proof that I do work on the front once in a while, and I'm not so lazy that I just hide in the pack all day. We're still moving fast here, and what this results in is us losing actually 1 more rider. So we do come down to our final selection of only 7 guys. You can see here there's a bit of a gap opening up in front of me. I go ahead and step on the gas, and I think this is actually what ends up separating the back of the group. Rafa jumps in front of me, I get that wheel, and I think it's just he, myself, and Max in tow, and we're basically patching this up to jump back up here to Zach, Larry, another PRT rider, and then Tim is a little bit up the road, but we're confident that if we work together, we'll keep him within our sights. Tim doesn't seem super confident that he's going to stay away for another 5, 6, 7, 8 miles, however much we have left at this point. And so he basically allows the group to come back together, and everybody's sort of slow rolling here. Nobody's doing too much. Everybody's back to almost a neutral state here. And we know that this is probably going to come down to some sort of sprint between the breakaway group members. A critical element of this course that makes it hard to catch a break if they establish a 4 or 5 minute gap like this is really that on the uphill sections, we maintain enough speed that you can sort of drag each other up the hill. While we're still doing 400 or 500 watts, it's important to note that if you have no draft and you're by yourself, you'd be doing a considerable amount more to get up these hills at the same rate of speed. Something I want to talk about here is how Max was continuously making me work by sliding out of the way like that. And these are things that in the race setting, you don't realize is happening until ultimately you close this gap. But looking back at the footage, I realized I'm doing a 400 watt effort here, sustained all the way up the hill to attach myself to Tim's wheel, when I know that Max was probably not that tired and he was basically just trying to make me work as we're coming into the last couple of laps. Now we're in the last lap, and basically I'm going to make a couple key critical errors here that actually end up ruining the race for me. So you can see I'm hanging out, Tim and I are sort of on the front here, and I'm taking a pull. I know that after we have come out of the last corner, I don't want to be taking this pull, so I move to the left. I'm expecting a potential attack from somebody in the back of the group, so I start actually looking over at the group, and while I'm not paying attention, this PRT rider goes on the left. Immediately, Larry is on the front. He's also a PRT rider, and he's not going to give chase. So I put in the big dig here to basically chase this rider back. I don't know if that was the smartest thing I could have done. Maybe I should have waited and let somebody else do it. However, if nobody else does it, this rider potentially gets away and stays away. So I start the chase effort, and you'll see in just a second, Rafa is going to come around me, and he's going to finish the chase effort that gets us within striking distance when we do come to the sprint at the line. Alright, we're all back together pretty much. We've crested the final hill, and we are a long way from the finish line. That does not mean Max is not going to go. So he takes off. I can't stay on his wheel. I try. I actually swing over. Rafa goes as well, so I try and jump on his wheel as well. And ultimately, I was popped from that effort chasing that rider initially. You can see I go from 700 watts. I drop to 5 pretty quickly. I see the groups start to slip away up the road. I know that my wattage is not going to be enough to basically catch any of them at this point. So I'm just going to pedal it out as hard as I can, keep the wattage up as much as possible, make sure nobody else comes around me at the last second. The end result is not the best I could have had. Basically, it turns out with me taking 6th out of the 7-man break. And let's check out Zach's footage here and see the sprint from his perspective. There you have it, folks. While I was not strong enough in the sprint to lock up a podium spot, I did manage to take 6th overall and hang with the break until the end. I'm pretty happy with that result. I probably could have done a little bit better had I been better at conserving energy, but I am in the middle of my base training phase right now, so racing is kind of tough. As always, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit like for me, and then if you want to see more videos like this out of my channel, go ahead and hit subscribe as well, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.